We are now live. I hope it doesn't give me one of those. Last time I did it live, the picture on Facebook gave me like my eyes half open and stuff. It was really, it was really funny actually.
The adventure of live technology in a modern world.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much for being on the podcast tonight. We're gonna get started, so I'll just do the intro music. I'm gonna try something new this tonight, so I don't mess it
Love
up.
it. I'm a big fan of music, so I'm ready to go. Little rock, little classic rock.
To the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast, a podcast about a journey of discovery and conversations about not sitting on the sideline of life. Let's get involved. Here's host Joe Foley.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. Hey, my name is Joe Foley. I want to thank you for being here. This is your first time on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. This is a podcast about a journey to discovery. What I mean is, I'm trying to figure this out one day at a time. And I really do appreciate being here. Tonight, my guest, Ryan Stanley, author of the book, Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, First Aid Kit for Emotional Bumps, Scrapes, Bruises, and all life's things. He's also a dad of two boys, so he knows a little understanding about being patient and being present, because two boys at the young age can be fun and exciting. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Joe, really super good to be here. Great to be here. I've been looking forward to it all day. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey.
Thank you. Thank you much for being here. This is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to just, it's fun about live technology and doing live streams. I think too much about the live streams. I'm going to try to think of just the way I do the podcast and where to flow the way it flows.
Exactly. Just be here now, and everything will go just the way it's supposed to.
It's funny thing about you as dads and stuff like that, especially being in the quarantine. What is two things you do with your boy this time? To do two boys this time of year during the summertime within quarantine stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I'm blessed in the fact that we have a great backyard, right? So sometimes I just kick them out as often as possible. We do have a little pool out there as well. And we've this summer, we actually, as part of a quarantine project, we actually built a 12 by 12 stone patio, brick patio out in the backyard. And so sometimes we put a fire table there. In general, I just like to kind of see what they want to do. Anytime I can spend quality time with them where I'm able to kind of ask them questions about where they are and what they're doing. There's no particular, I wouldn't say there's anything that's too different from a quarantine standpoint, as I don't know, as strange as that sounds. And the fact that, my wife works in the school district, so she's often home, and my kids, like I work from home every day anyway. And so a ton hasn't changed. We really spend time together when we can. I would say for the most part, it depends. That they've actually grown quite a bit. They're at the ages of 6 and 9. So they're right in this kind of transition of kind of growing up quickly and becoming more little people. So just the opportunity to get some hang time has been an awesome experience.
Well, it's true. I mean, I have a 7-year-old who's going to be going into second grade.
Yeah.
And dad becomes a jungle gym. And dad's come the sports player. He wants to say, Dad, let's go play soccer. Dad's tired right now. Dad doesn't want to play soccer. But dad's like, I'll go. No problem. I'm out there. I'm playing. So it's all
great. This is our one chance, right? This is when we get to do it. And possibly, I know for me, I didn't have a dad that spent a ton of time with me when I was a younger person, when I was a kid. And so that in itself has been a lesson for me to try to do it as often as possible. It's funny you mentioned that. It's like, I touched on the pool. We have a pool. So I'll get out there with the kids. And like when I'm there, I just kind of want to relax and maybe do some walking laps and just kind of chill. But to your point, I mean, I've never been more of a jungle gym than I am in that pool. The second I am in there, if they're not both literally on me at the same time, it's like I walk out of there just needing a chiropractor.
Well, that's one thing. A funny story. The summertime, me and my son took the 3 state park tour right in a row, and so just me and him. And I get on this big tube, and he tried to tip Dad over all the time. See if he can tip Dad over all the time. He get on my back and like, whoa! I mean, I could pretty much stand up on the water, but it was just fun him trying to tip me over. It was kind of fun.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. How much longer is that going to be able to? Are we going to be able to do that with them? Right, 7. Once he reaches that 10-year-old mark, either A, they want to do less of it. B, they're just getting too big. They're just too big for us to kind of be the jungle gym for. So it's like get it while we can. Right. It's like as frustrating physically as it may be at certain points, knowing that it's tentative. And I think when we talk to a lot of people who, first thing that I see, any parents who have grown children, they're always like, hold on to it, man. It goes by fast. It goes by fast. And having a 7 and 9-year-old, I can agree, but I'm still able to hold on to those little guys for now for a little bit.
Well, then the topic we're going to talk about tonight is patience versus curiosity as parents. Kind of interesting topic, I think, because being patient being patient as a parent sometimes can be challenging,
Of course.
and being curious, it can go both ways. It can be curious being a parent, could be curious of being just an adult trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing in this world?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. I think the importance of patience is huge. I think, and we'll touch on that in a second. I think that the other thing when it comes to curiosity, is unfortunately, or not, well, fortunately or unfortunately, just as human nature, we typically, especially sometimes as a parent, we utilize a lot of judgment, right? And I don't mean in a good way, like make good judgment. I mean, we judge our children for behaving the way that they're behaving. And we're basically, in that sense, we're comparing them to ourselves in our own life, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm frustrated that my 7 and 9-year-old have not been behaving in the way that this 45-year-old man has learned to behave, right? After 40 more years than they've been alive. So first of all, patience is huge. And for me, I think it's the number one thing to really strive for if you want to focus on being a great parent. I think the value in being patient and by the way, not only with your children, but also with yourself, right? And with the parent and whoever you're co-parenting with, whether it be a spouse or if you're separated and you're just co-parenting. Patience is so important because it gives you an opportunity to think more logically than emotionally. Right? Typically, when we're feeling impatient, when you've told them to get off the table 6 times and they're just standing on it again, like waving at you, like that's when you need to okay, where's my patience coming in? Who am I creating right now? Am I creating a person who's patient or impatient? It doesn't mean it's okay for them to just continue to do that, but it is, important for us to be aware of our behavior in those spaces. So patience is huge. And I think the other part about it, the more we are able to be patient, not only with our children, but with ourselves, the more we're able to be present. And the more we're able to make decisions that would serve the outcome that we really want in the end anyway. Because if we're frustrated because the child is behaving a certain way, and instead we decide to recognize the frustration and increase our patience, to really decide who we want to be in that moment. And sometimes that's the most powerful part about patience, is that you can take the time to decide who you want to be.
Well, it's interesting too about patience. Since you have the same age as your son's the same age as my son. They have to find something as you're leaving the house. As soon as
Always.
you go, I gotta find that. We had like a half hour to find that thing,
Right.
and then you're like, come on, we gotta go. And the patience, get your shoes on, but I gotta find that one ball that I need to play in the field. You're like, that teaches a lot of patience right there.
Of course. And you have to want to learn. That's the other important part, right? You have to
Mm.
want to become more patient. But yeah, I've been there 1,000 times, right? It's like you literally are walking out the door, you've got your keys in your hand, you've got everything, and they're, doing, even if you told them to get their shoes on, you think they have their shoes on, but then they only have one shoe on, right? You saw them getting on, you felt like you were moving forward, you're ready to go. And like you said, all of a sudden, not only they only have one shoe on, but they then need to go back to their room and look for 17 other things before they can go. That's a huge part.
Well, patience. What is patience? I mean, I understand patience being calm, waiting for somebody. What is patience to you?
Yeah, I think there's a great quote actually in my book. And it's not by me. It's by, and I'm losing it right now, but I have her right in front of me. Joyce. Hold on one second. Joyce Mayer. And the quote is, patience is not simply the ability to wait. It's how we behave while we're waiting. Right. So it's, in my opinion, patience is recognizing that, first of all, to really utilize patience, you need to recognize that you're being impatient. It's kind of like the need to create it, right? When you recognize that your behavior is not serving you because you feel like you want something to happen sooner than later. You want it to happen yesterday. You want it to have happened already. When you get into this place, there's an opportunity for you. You start to feel the blood boil. If you're sitting in traffic, when you're stressed, when you're impatient with what is going on around you. And so at that point, it's really important to recognize that I have a choice in any given moment. And sometimes that choice is just to create patience and be curious, right? So then we go to that curious piece. How does patience feel? How does a patient person behave? What would it be like to create patience? And when you start to ask those questions of yourself, you actually automatically, even unconsciously, you are creating patience because you're no longer focused on the stress or overwhelm of whatever is not happening. And instead, you're being curious in the now as to what patience actually is. And by asking yourself that question, you start to take a moment. You start to be more present, and that's where you can begin to create patience. And then you build a habit of that instead.
Well, interesting curiosity. It's fun about being a parent because I'm trying to figure stuff out a day at a time, things at a time. I'm curious, and it's fun thing about being, I forget what it is to be a 7-year-old, and
Sure.
trying to sit there and trying to figure out what. And I remember when I was 7, I used to watch these shows. My parents would go, "What the heck are you watching?"
Right. Yeah.
Now I'm like, what the heck are you watching again?
Yeah, what exactly, literally, right?
And being curious about what's going on in their minds, their stories they're trying to tell, and stuff like that. And it's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, and empathy is huge in that space as well. So my wife is so I'm first of all I'm the second oldest of 10.
Oh wow.
Yep, and I 8 boys, 2 girls, and so I've grew up with a lot of brothers, and my wife is a third. She's a third child, and they're all girls, right? So she's the youngest of 3 girls. And so when my boys behave a certain way, and they're not outlandish, they're not anything crazy, but they're boys, right? And so they do misbehave, they do occasionally talk back, or they're just figuring themselves out. And so I very clearly remember what it was like to be a boy growing up with other brothers, and why I behaved the way that I did. And so I do reach them with empathy. I do try to take a moment to be like, okay, what is actually going on here? Are they really just trying to be mean? Are they really just trying to be, disrespectful? It's like they're not trying to do any of those things. There's aspects of opportunity for them to learn about respect and, being a good listener, those types of things. And that's my job as a parent. But I still do need. I think it's important for us to your point, like ask questions like, why are they actually behaving this way? What is really going on here? Like, why are they watching that? Do they know anything different? Do they know any better? Right?
It's also being interesting too, growing up in the world of technology are now with cell phones, tablets, Xboxes.
Even just 24-hour television, like the fact that when we were kids, like you got to watch TV on Saturday morning, or you watched it for maybe an hour after school, right? There was like the 4 to 5 or whatever it was. They had 2 shows that you could watch, and then kind of drifted into parenting, right? Or news or whatever. 5 o'clock news would come on. 5:30 news would come on.
Well, especially in the evening, when you knew when first thing on Saturday morning, right before we had, where I lived, we had it was like Captain something. Used to draw and paint all the time. Before that, it was like a circle would make a noise, and I won't make the noise now, but it was a beeping noise, and it's like we'll start soon, and all of a sudden the national anthem would come on, and then Captain Bob, I think his name was Captain Bob, that's the guy's name was, and you see like a fishing pier, and he comes out, and we'll start drawing every morning. Then Scooby Doo comes on, and then it comes on the Super Friends. I always love Super Friends, the Hall of Justice.
I was a huge fan. I used to watch all those things myself. Captain Kangaroo, is that what you're thinking of?
Well, yeah, that came out. Oh, sorry, Captain Bob, then Captain Kangaroo, then the rest of them. There was 2 of them.
Yeah, and it's funny. And so that was it. Like you had to get in. But now the kids, I mean, literally at any point, it's like, well, I just want to watch TV. They can turn on the television anytime and find multiple channels that will have entertainment for them. And so getting them, in fact, even now during summer when it's like hot out and you want to, listen, guys, I try to kick them outside as often as possible. I'm like, get outside, guys. Like now this is summer. It's going to be winter. It's going to be getting dark soon. And it's like all of a sudden they'll say things like, and I think I used to say the same thing, but like, oh, I'm bored. I was like, well, listen, I say boring people are bored. So find something to do. You've got everything that you need to live, to exist, and to have fun. You've got a huge backyard. You've got gravity. You've got oxygen. You've got sunlight. Get out there and create something. Use your imagination. And if they say, I want to play video games, I was like, great. Spend some time thinking about right now what you want to do in your next video game. Plot it out outside, whatever it is. If you want to build something in Minecraft, he plays a lot of Minecraft. He's creating all these different things. Then think about that, but utilize time outside, and I think nature is really important just in general, like physically to surround yourself with as often as possible. So to kind of, whether they like it or not, to kind of start those little tiny things on a daily basis, I think is important. Planting seeds, for
definitely planting the seeds of the future. It's kind of like, you don't know what's going to happen now. You do the best you can now and think you're doing everything right. And it's like, it's a big, I hate to say, a big science project. And at the end, you hope the science project comes out correctly. And in the end, we have a great adults and they do well when they're in the future. But it's like you don't know right now.
And going back to your point, and so that's why curiosity again can be so powerful, because you can ask yourself questions. How will this affect them later in life without it being a stressful thing? Like, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? Right? You're not judging yourself for being a good or bad parent. You're generally being curious as to how the nature of your teaching at that moment will serve them, right? And how it serves you, right? One thing I always say is, be who you want your kids to be as often as possible. Like, so anytime if I'm calling my son out on something, I want to be sure that I'm already behaving in that manner, so that if he sees me at another point behaving differently, or basically so that he doesn't see me behaving differently at another point.
Well, it's funny you say that. Like when I'm behaving differently, he's like, well, if you want something, you got to put the work in. And I'm like, and that's what I told him the other day. I'm like, oh man, no, I back myself in the corner. I got to show him. I got to be the role model. Right. I got to, whatever I say, to him, I gotta hold my end of the bargain too. I'm like,
Of course.
no, now I gotta do that. So I can't. I don't want to be, because some people, you can say it like, and if you don't do it, you're some kind of like a hypocrite sometimes.
Of course, always. And that's what we never want to ask anything. And in general, the great news about that, Joe, is just by doing that, you are actually teaching leadership skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sign of a good leader is someone who wouldn't ask one of their followers to do something that they wouldn't do themselves. And I think as a parent, I mean, that's the place that you can teach leadership the most, right? By example, not only to inspire them to be good leaders growing up, but to be the leader that you want them to see and model after.
Well, interesting too. Another thing I wanted to talk about was being your book a little bit, because we can tie it into parenting. We already talked about patience. We talk about being present. Being present sometimes. Sometimes it's hard right now in the world we live in, when everything's moving such a fast pace. Everything's going so quickly, and being present. Sometimes we always want to know what the latest thing on Facebook is and Twitter, and we got to answer that email right now because we have instant connection to everybody.
Of course. So it feels that way, but that's not always the truth, right? I mean, it feels that way because that's a habit that we developed. And so sometimes the important part is to change that habit, and to recognize, how am I being present? Again, going back to curiosity, what does presence feel like? If I'm worried about the past, if I'm worried about something I said 2 weeks ago, if I'm worried about what someone somewhere else thinks, if I'm worried about that something's not going to get done on time, if I'm worried about that I'm not farther enough in my career, if I'm worried about anything that is not here now, you're typically not being present.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're with a child, in fact, sometimes, again, leading by example, if you see a child just behaving in a way that you don't want them to behave, it's not ideal for your family lifestyle, for who you want to be, for who you believe they should be. There's an opportunity for us to, instead of being frustrated or overwhelmed with them, to be present in the moment and really get down to their level, and might even get down to their eye level, and say that's a good way to kind of bring them present. But if, let's just say, the child isn't right there with you and you're just feeling overwhelmed because of their behavior or something that's going on in the life as a parent or just as a human being in general, a lot of the time presence can be created just by literally focusing on your 5 senses.
Mm-hmm.
What do I smell right now? What do I hear right now? What do I see right now? What can I feel the air against the skin of my face? Like, you can literally be here right now, because truth of the matter, Joe, is that really now is all there ever is, right?
Yeah. Okay.
In the grand scheme of things. So when we start to kind of step into that space and decide who you want to be now, and not worried about the past, not worried about the future, but who do I want to be right in this moment? That's when you can create patience. That's when you can create presence. That's when you can, be here now and then decide who you want to be moving forward.
It was an interesting thing about not thinking about the past. That's kind of like sometimes people find that hard and difficult to do.
Of course. And because it's a habit that you developed, that we've all developed. We spend so much time staring at the past. And the challenge with that is, the more we stare at the past, that's the more we're going to bring into our future. If we're constantly thinking about the past, we've created this identity around the past and different situations that happened to us. That's what we end up talking about all the time and staring at all the time. Then that's how you're going to be showing up for your future. And those are the types of stories and situations that you're going to bring into your future. So while it's something that we all do, it doesn't necessarily mean that it serves us, I suppose.
No, definitely not. Not thinking about the past, but like I said, it was a little bit. Like I said, it was a little bit. Like, it is a little bit difficult sometimes to not think about it. And
it can be a lot bit difficult but like anything else that's worth doing, it takes practice. But the more you practice doing it and focus on the present, the more it becomes natural for you.
One thing about the book, I have a lot of like little sticky notes in the pages. I wanted to make sure I read it thoroughly tonight. But
thank you.
Be joyful. Be joyful. It's one thing. The next thing about being joyful in the title, it's what is it? It's like when I think being joyful is like being grateful, being thankful for the time I have here on earth, time I get a chance to spend with my son, time that I'm grateful to have a job in this period and the climate we are right now.
Yeah. So that's absolutely gratitude, by the way, it can come into all those things. Gratitude is definitely for patience. Gratitude is definitely for presence, and gratitude can be utilized for joy as well. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. So that's definitely one way to experience joy, is to create gratitude for the moment. And again, going back to the now, right? Being grateful to be here right now, right? So you don't have to worry about the future or the past. But there's also opportunity, and this might be a space where it's good to think of the past, like where you think of someone who you love unconditionally. Sometimes even just thinking of your child. It's not only grateful to be a parent, but think about the actual love that you have inside for that child. I know for me, I can, I love my wife, I love my siblings, I love my family, but I can honestly say, and it might just been a part of my maturing journey, but I never really understood unconditional love until I had my children, my first child, right? And so to think about what that love feels like, that is joy. If you think about a really fun experience in your life that you would love to share or tell a story about, like that is joy. Compassion, love, gratitude, all these different things that we can create at any given moment can be joyful. Sometimes petting a dog can be joyful. Sometimes, whatever it is that listen to your favorite band or dancing, whatever brings you joy in any other given moment. Sometimes you don't think that you can bring it about yourself, but and we think that these things happen to us, right? So these different things bring joy into my life, but really at any given moment, we have the opportunity to create joy as well.
Well, it's one thing you talk about creating. I thought it was interesting. I kind of put a star around the book. You in your prologue, you are the creator. I thought that was pretty interesting. You are the creator of your life.
Yeah.
And in your situation.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it's the funny thing is, it's not something that we often think about, but we are always creating something. We create every aspect of our life, whether we know it or not. Meaning, right now, you and I are creating two men recording an awesome podcast. Right? If you wake up in the morning, and I touched on this in the book. If you wake up in the morning, you decide to put on blue socks, blue pants, blue shirt, blue hat. You're literally creating a man dressed in blue. We create conversation. We create art. We create businesses. We create music. We create a sandwich. You could literally put two, peanut butter and jelly on two pieces of bread and you put it together, you're creating a sandwich. Even though by sleeping, you are creating a human being who is sleeping, right? And we're always creating something. And with that, we create happiness, we create laughter, we create joy, we create friendship, all these different things. Unfortunately, sometimes we also create stress. We create anger, we create overwhelm, we create anxiety, right? These are not, it's not to say that those things aren't, valid based on your experience up until that moment. It's not like nobody should ever create those things. But it is important for people to recognize that anger isn't outside. Anger comes from within. So we create it. Stress isn't outside. Stress comes from within based on our reaction to something outside. So at any point, you are creating something. And when you start to recognize, I am creating stress, I'm creating overwhelm, I'm creating impatience, there's an opportunity for us to guess and ask, not guess, but to ask, like, what could I be creating instead?
Was interesting. And interesting too. I found that interesting. Being your creator, I was looking up your bio, like the stuff about you.
Yeah.
You were also, besides a dad and a coach, a life coach, you were also a screenwriter too, that being creative.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I love, so entrepreneurship in general, I see as a form of art. I think, a lot of the time people look at musicians and they look at painters and they look at sculptors as these artists as they are, but they don't typically look at entrepreneurs that way. And the things that those both have in common is artists start off with nothing but a blank canvas or an idea or something that came from their mind. And they take the tools that they have around them to create it. And they create it so they can put something out there for the world to see, to judge, and possibly even to make money from. And entrepreneurs are the same way. They're starting off with nothing. They have an idea. They want to take the tools that they have around them to build something and to create it so they can share it with the world and ideally get paid for it, right? So there's very difference. In fact, in that space, as a coach, I used to coach musicians specifically. Like that was for the first 5 years of my coaching career, I really worked specifically with musicians. And a lot of the time, what people didn't realize is that musicians are entrepreneurs, right? That people just see them as creatives or see them as artists, but they're also entrepreneurs. So it's interesting to see what interplays. And so I am always creating something, whether it be, this book was an entrepreneurial project for me. I wrote a screenplay a number of years ago. I have a t-shirt company. I obviously I create a bunch of different things because that's how I love to kind of present in the world. But yeah, so the screenplay was definitely one of them as well.
Well, being such a creative and stuff, all the stuff you're doing, creative entrepreneur and t-shirt, the shirt company and stuff like that. What is your son's perspective about it?
Actually, I have to tell you, it is one of the things I am most proud of, that I can see the DNA coming through. Like they are both, especially my older one at this point, very entrepreneurial minded, like very creative in that sense. My son the other day, like I mentioned, he's been getting into Minecraft lately. And so he said to me the other day, he said, Dad, can I, he's 9 now. And I said, you have to be 11 to do this. He goes, well, when I'm 11 though, I can start my own YouTube channel, right? And I can have it of me like playing Minecraft and showing others how to play. I said, yeah, absolutely. First, like without even skipping a beat, next thing is, okay, I'm gonna need a logo and some merch. And I was like, that's my boy. I was like, he's seeing it larger plan. He's constantly talking about starting businesses. In fact, he has a friend that they're planning to start a fishing company next year where they want to go down and they want to fish. His friend's gonna do the fishing, he's gonna do the crabbing, and they want to sell seafood to restaurants all at the shore. And he's telling me he's going to work this summer, which is almost over at this point, but he's going to start mowing lawns so he can save up and get his own boat by next summer. And so very creative and entrepreneurial at the same time. I'm excited to see what the future holds for them both. My second son is a little bit more on the musical side. He is always singing. He's always playing something. He always has to have music playing in the background. As soon as we're in the car, he's like, Dad, turn it up. So I envision him being a little bit more on the music side of things.
He must be. It sounds like it sounds like a real proud dad. And I'm like, wow, for many, your oldest son going, how old is he again? I'm not sure this is the right age.
Well, you know what he is. I will say he's advanced. Right? Every parent thinks their son is advanced. I would just say his intellect level seems a little bit more advanced than certain other 9-10-year-olds that I've met. He'll be 10 in November. So, but yeah, he's always thinking of something.
He must be a real proud dad to stuff like that. One thing.
Go ahead.
One thing I was thinking about too, when in the book, and I will read it because don't worry about what the score is from the end. People only remember how you play the game. And it's like I can relate that to parenting too. I don't keep score. I just worry about being remember how because my son's gonna remember what I did. He's not gonna remember how I did it. He's gonna remember I had a great time with Dad going to the lake. I had a great time sitting and playing video games with Dad. I'm wondering what your thoughts about that.
Yeah, 100%. So here's the thing, and I realized this a long time ago as a parent. So first of all, my two favorite things in life are coaching and parenting. And the reason those things are my favorites are they're both places where I'm consistently teaching and learning at the same time, right? When you're there, when you're present with my clients or with my kids, I'm definitely teaching and learning always. So to go to that place of what I remember, like if you think about it, I don't remember most of the days last week, every single second, every day last week, right? Not to mention, 30 years ago when I was a kid, right? But I do remember certain moments, and we can never tell what those moments are going to be. Right. So I know there's certain moments that I remember, there's certain highs, whatever they stick in my brain, they stick out. So knowing that as a parent, I always want the moments to be remembered fondly or that they got something out of it. Right. I want every opportunity that I have to spend time with my child. I want that to be, if that's going to be the one they remember, I want to be remembered in a way that serves their purpose as a human being as they grow up into an adult. And I think about that consistently. So when I am getting angry, when I am getting stressed, there is an opportunity for me to say, okay, wait a second, dial it back. How can I be patient in the moment? Or how can I address this differently from more of a logical sense so they hear me and they think about it, and also with some empathy so I'm meeting them where they're at and acknowledging and validating. I think as a parent, one of the most important things that we can do is really acknowledge their feelings, because kids want to hear, they want to feel acknowledged. They want to know, actually human beings in general, they want to know that their feelings are valid, and then you can move on to what they could be doing differently, right? So for me, just to kind of go to your point, it's like, I agree 100%. It's not, they don't remember the score. People don't remember how much money you made, or people don't remember how much, all these little tiny details, but they remember who you were as a human being. And your parent and I believe, like on my deathbed, like that's what I think is most important. What is my legacy? How will my children remember me? And not just on the good days, but on the bad days, on the tough days, for the lessons, like, in every aspect, how can I help them to be the best human being that they could possibly be?
Well, another saying too, I don't remember where quite it came from, but is they don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel too. That's another one I was thinking about.
Totally, 100%. In fact, part of the reason I wrote this book was because of being a parent. Like, was my legacy. Like, I want something for my kids to look back on and feel like, oh, hey, this was something that Dad left for us and for their kids and for their kids. This is my great grandfather wrote this. It came out right before there was a pandemic and all this different stuff. Who knows? But to have something like that I can leave for my kids, so that they do have a first aid kit for the tough days. It was a big part of it.
One thing I was curious about too, because a lot of people are life coaches. What kind of life coach, kind of coach are you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I used to work specifically with musicians, but I also, there's a company. So I was trained by an organization called IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. They're one of, if not the top coach training program in the world. After I was trained for them, actually, even before I graduated, they actually asked me to come work for them for a little bit. And so while I was there, one of my roles was the internal coach. So I coached their staff. So I was the coach for everybody from entry level all the way up to the CEO. I just coached them on what was going on for work for them, what was going on personally, like how they want to show up and be a better person. So I bring this up now because after 5 years of working with just musicians and people in the music industry, I then, after having this role as an internal coach and connecting with all sorts of different people, I really was able to widen my ability to work with whomever. I specifically work with people who are ready to make change, people who recognize that they have blocks, they have fears, they have limiting beliefs, they have things in their lives that are keeping them small. They're willing to do the work. They're willing to show up on purpose. It does take physical, mental, spiritual, emotional changes need to be made for you to be a different person. And so I work with people to help them get clarity on who they prefer to be and help them get clarity on what they're doing about that.
That was interesting too. What kind of experience, like you said you were coaching musicians, what kind of things you work on as a musician you work with musicians? I can think of the word out of my mouth.
Yeah. It's funny, they would always come to me with, hey, Ryan, I want to get more gigs. I want to get an album made. I want to get more social media followers or whatever. And I'd say, great, we'll get to that. But let's start with you. You know what I mean? And day one, we really start coaching them around what their internal dialogue is like. What are they telling themselves on a regular basis? What type of faith do they have in the outcome that they're pursuing? What kind of really even just getting them clarity on what success actually looks and feels like to them. Because a lot of time on the day one, I'd be like, well, what do you want? Oh, I want to be rich. Great. Tell me more. Well, I want to be famous. Awesome. Okay. So what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, I want to sell at stadiums. Great. So let's talk about, you know what I mean? So to really dial it back and see where we are and help them get clarity of what each step looks like, and also make them aware of what it's going to take to get there. Again, not only from get enough records played or get enough listens, but again, on a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional way. Like, who do you want to be every day to make that part of your reality?
Interesting too. I was just kind of curious because I interview a bunch of different coaches and stuff, and I was always kind of curious what they go through in coaching people. One thing to talk about more for your book. Who's your book meant for?
Yeah, great question, man. It's really meant for anybody who's feeling stress, anybody who's feeling overwhelmed. I actually wrote it with two purposes in mind. And by the way, also, I really want to thank you for giving the opportunity to talk about the book. It's definitely a blessing, and I don't take it for granted. First of all, I wrote it as you pointed out, it's a small book, right? It's nothing too huge. It's something that you can read in 30 minutes or less, 30, 40 minutes tops, if you want to just kind of sit there and go through it. And I am not the type of guy that's going to sit down and read 300 pages. There's some amazing books out there that will change your life. I will typically not finish them. So I wanted a book that I could just, if I was having a tough day, I was feeling overwhelmed, I was feeling frustration, I was feeling anxiety, I could pick up, read through in 35, 40 minutes and have tangible action plan, tangible awareness of who I am, how I can show up right now to feel better about who I want to be and who I am in the moment. And so it's written, that's A, but then B, it's also written, to your point, there's a different quote on every page. You could open up something, any page in this entire book, and find something that could serve you in the moment. So if you're feeling stress, you're feeling anxiety, all of a sudden, I know a lot of people who keep it in the glove compartment. Some people keep it by their bedstand. Some people keep it at their desk at work, because if they're just feeling, in fact, I'm in talks with some companies to, part of their human resources department, just to hand it out as they're onboarding. Like, as soon as you get to work, listen, it doesn't have to be, this isn't a great place to work, but if you happen to have a stressful day, here's a book for you to open up and get some clarity on who you could be. So it's made for anybody who is interested in taking control of who they are to enjoy life more in the moment.
Definitely a book that people check out. One more thing, wrapping up, I think final thoughts, letting you leave with about being patient, being curious with your kids, or being curious in life.
Yeah. So definitely, I would say curiosity is I know we touched on it, is the opposite of judgment. And I say that a lot of the time we judge ourselves as parents, we judge ourselves as in our career, we judge ourselves as in our weight, we judge ourselves in all these different places, right? We're constantly saying, I should be better. But really, that's just saying I'm not good enough. And the truth is, deep down, you are more than good enough. You are made of energy. You are, sent from God. You are literally a being on this planet with all this potential. So instead of judging yourself, just be curious. So in the same space, I'll use 3 examples. 1, career. 2, weight. 3, relationship. Career. I should be further along on my career. Well, you know what? You could change that to could. How can I be curious? So I could be further along in my career. What can I do about that? What could be different if I stepped it? You know what I mean? The energy, even just saying, oh, I should be further along in my career, feels heavy, but I could be, right? I should have lost more weight by now. Cool. That's kind of like, I should be, I'm not good enough. I'm overweight. I could have lost more weight by now. I could lose more weight. Cool. What does that look like, right? There's always opportunity to ask questions about it, and not from a judgmental standpoint. So just for curiosity, as a parent, when you see your child misbehaving, instead of getting right to, I know I told you that 17 times, maybe go to, why is he still behaving this way? And ask with love, right? And genuine curiosity, like, why is he still, I have said it 17 times, and maybe say that to them. more often than not, sometimes even get off the table for the 15th hour and say, what do you think I'm going to say right now? And that would give them, that is me being curious, but it's also a different way of parenting that gives them the responsibility to ask the questions. How can they take responsibility for their behavior? And ask, if they have to answer questions instead of just being yelled at or being told what to do all the time, it puts them in more control and opens more of a dialogue, which will serve you more as you move forward.
What I find it funny is the 17th time and the 15th time. I know I definitely can understand and be experienced with that. Get off the table on the 15th time. I definitely understand that. Also, where they can find your book when they want to find out your book and stuff like that, and where to connect and they want to reach out, maybe ask questions.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So again, my name is Ryan Stanley. And so you can go to ryanstanley.com. That's RyanStanley. You can buy my book there. You can, in fact, if you buy my book on my website, you will get a signed copy. It'll come directly from me. But then you'll also get a complimentary coaching session depending on my availability. But otherwise, if you just find that you're on Amazon for the 10th time today and you've got the cart loaded up, it's also on there. You can check it out. Unanimous 5-star reviews. The book is titled Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life.
Ryan, thank you much for being on the podcast, and I really do appreciate all the links will be in the show notes for this episode. I really do appreciate you, sir. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Joe, I appreciate you as well, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being you.
Thank you very much.